The wacky world of Multimedia J.
I went off to work this morning with the Undertaker's theme from the WWE stuck in my head. I'd found a video on YouTube over the weekend and played it a few too many times. Sadly, it turned into fitting music for this total disaster of a Monday. So, first and foremost, we had a little bit of snow this morning, just enough to be a pain in the neck. And that didn't stop the merry band of uniquely gifted idiots, special snowflakes, if you will, tailgating me with their summer tires. And then I actually got to where I was supposed to go, and everything went wrong from then on out. Looks like we're back to where we were last peak season. Yay! Lots of overtime. You know, it's one thing to have overtime because, high volume! It's another thing to have overtime and have that consist of zipping around trying to get things done alongside folks that are like, la 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 la. Do I really have to admit that the warehouse fiasco was better at recruiting and team building? I really hope it doesn't come to that. I really hope it doesn't. I'd like to think that we're better than them, but apparently even that's questionable nowadays. So, my thoughts exactly. Bah humbug! It is in light of these disappointments that I'm going to give my exhaustion the bird and proceed with what I call Great Sift closure. The more this ticks me off at the 9 to 5, the more I'm going to crank things into high gear no matter how I feel. Maybe I won't even play Elder Scrolls Online again until January. But by the time that vacation week comes around, we will be making a trip, and we will be concluding the Great Sift, and everything will be wrapping up like it's supposed to. I really have no other choice in the matter. Let the closure begin. First, I need to know that I'm not nuts. That might take some effort. So here's the 2005 system with an ATX height board in there, and here's the HP that's slated to be tossed. Now here's the problem. I might be able to, just eyeballing it, I might be able to squeeze an ATX size board. Looks like an ATX board would fit inside this thing. But what would kill its ability to do anything is the power supply. Now this thing has a bracket so that it hooks in like this. But what this means is that an ATX size supply like this, we need a shorter optical drive, which I don't think... Nope, that's... I don't think they come any shorter than this. So this thing was made to be throwaway. I think it's time to throw it away. So for anybody who was like, come on, there was hope for that thing. No, there wasn't. Let's let bygones be bygones here, please. I'm not that crazy. Although I think drives are shorter these days. You want to rip one out? Let's rip one out of the Silver Bullet and just, yeah, because the second one in the Silver Bullet doesn't work. Let's compare things, shall we? Ooh, Dust Bunny. This is nuts, but drives have shrunk since this thing's day. Let's get this thing in here. What kind of space are we looking at with something like this? The holes are lined up! Woohoo! That's what it would look like from the front. You could always steal the bezel off the driver getting rid of. But... okay, so... assuming we get 90-degree SATA, SATA cables, whatever, we are looking at still not enough room. Maybe if the power supply is modular. Oh man, it would be a challenge. Challenge accepted. Actually, let's compare this Enermax. Oh, wait a minute. Let's compare the Enermax to. Well, no, they're the same depth. They're the same depth, so that one would be in the same boat. Whoops. Except this would come out here, and it would go down, and it would. Where would I put the hard drive? Where the floppy drive was, though? Where was the hard drive? Oh, the hard drive was in this cage. Get the measuring tape. Let's check these motherboard heights. I think they might both be ATX. This is certifiably off the deep end, but I think we could get a 2005 system to fit inside the HP, and then get a power supply to reuse that bracket, and just have the cables in the right spot to try and keep them out of the way of the optical drive. I actually think this might be doable in terms of the 2005 system inside a piece of crap like this. Am I nuts or what? Well, now, I would say that the HP has saved itself from the scrap heap, but its insides have not. So, let's make some plans to gut this thing. Unfortunately, right now I'm waiting for a pizza. So, I haven't had anything to eat in several hours because of the overtime and whatnot. So after having supper tonight, I wonder if I could spend some time gutting this thing. Gut it and clean it. Man, I'm goofing around with computers here, but I'm talking about them like I'm catching fish. Whatever. Mod project. This bracket that holds the power supply in the case wasn't made for any decent power supplies that actually have a hard switch in the back. So we're gonna have to get something that cuts metal to cut that a little more to accommodate a power supply with a switch. And we might have to cut off that piece in the middle. Well, that won't be easier anyways. Chop through that sucker so that a big power plug in the back doesn't get in the way. But other than that, the screw holes will line up, and we can put an ATX something or another power supply in there and maybe sort of have it fit. Plus, something I forgot was that we'll have it turned sideways, so we can just have the wires coming out somewhere where there isn't any drives. So, which would mean, in this case, because this goes in like this and becomes, when it's lined up correctly, it becomes part of the case. Because this goes in like this means that something like this would be in like this. The cables would jut out of the bottom. So you just gotta watch where you mount the hard drive. We could theoretically squeeze an ATX system into this piece of crap. My curiosity is getting the better of me now. Theoretically, if we didn't have aftermarket cooling, we could fit Tuxedo into this if we really wanted to. But I don't. So, yeah, let's stick with something that's using a stock cooler. Yeah. Speaking of proving to myself that I'm not certifiably nuts, yeah, this piece of junk actually holds a bigger motherboard than the Dillosaurus can. What? This thing's older. Well, actually, the Pavilion that I had in college that didn't make it halfway through, yeah, that actually had an Asus K7M 8TX-sized motherboard in it. So maybe I shouldn't be surprised that this piece of crap has more room. It's also a deeper case as well. Look at that. Size difference. But plus, oh my goodness, the Dillosaurus doesn't even use screws to mount the board. Just stupid little turn the thing with a pair of pliers. Oh man, maybe this piece of junk should be the joke system. This, I don't know what to do with at this point. We'll get some ideas when we take this thing apart later. But wow, okay, and here I was gonna junk this thing. We can make something out of this, somehow. This whole part of the case slides out at once because springy, and there's a retention screw down here that keeps it from accidentally coming undone. the dust bunny is actually going to have to... Ew!
Mega Uber Dust Bunny!
Throw that out. Now, we can finish gutting this thing. No capacitor plague signs anywhere in here. But take the ribbon cables out and let's get the motherboard connectors and everything. Let's gut this sucker. Let's gut this sucker. The sooner we gut it, the sooner we can clean it. The board is out. Now we get to look at some signs of the bad old days. I went to school with a couple of folks who tried building computers in the late 90s, and this kind of reminds me. First off, look at that old Intel thing there. Celeron, 400 megahertz with a Cooler Master pathetic little fan on a heatsink on the slot-mounted cartridge processor, but unlike the AMD one, doesn't completely have cartridge housing. It'd be nice if I could. It would be really nice. I probably can't do this with one hand. Nope. It'd be really nice if I could have another cartridge processor to add to the collection, but I don't think that's going to look nice when it comes off. Is that a AGP slot? This piece of crap had a discrete graphics card, and the Delosaurus doesn't. Then again, this is probably an Asus board. It looks very similar to the K7M in my original HP. Maybe I should get it working again. Nah, forget it. P2BVE, it looks very similar to the K7M. Or maybe, well, yeah. PCI, ooh, ISA. We're going back for that one. Also worth noting, there are jumpers. You had to actually set jumpers back in the day instead of going into your BIOS. Is that some kind of, oh, it's an oscillator. I wonder what that's for. Is that related to the processor in some way, shape, or form? A couple oscillator thingies on here. Power's way off in the corner somewhere. It's the bad old days. This is the 90s, the new metal era of computing. I don't miss it. I'm actually glad I missed it, but there was a lot less jumpers when I burst onto the scene in the early noughts, and I'm glad I missed it. I don't think I've missed much by missing this bad era in computing. Now I just gotta figure out what the heck this brown dust crap is. I don't know if it's from the folks whose place when my dad had this as his backup, or maybe it's from 20 years ago when that last sitter I had was actually still using this as her main computer. Don't know if she ever blew out any of the dust, but we're gonna clean this thing out right now, because it's crazy that this thing has any potential whatsoever. Bare, but workable. Although we might have some trouble with the switches and everything, because it's just a power switch and an LED, and they have to be across from each other. Look at that. Look at that crap. Just one row of that stuff. We might have to do some splicing. We may have to do a little bit of splicing in order to get this to work with separate plugs, or maybe put some diagonal cutters to this very carefully and split it in two. Ah, yes. Now, I don't know what this brown dust is, but it's coming out. Get some paper towels and wipe this sucker clean. The big question is going to be, how do we get the I/O shield out? The music has stopped. The pizza arrived, and while I was having supper, I saw this. My night will be ending abruptly, much like this video, after seeing this. This is Amazon's grocery store of the future. No cashiers, no registers, and no lines. They're piloting this in Seattle next year. Amazon Go. Aldi has just had their clocks cleaned by Amazon. Mind blown. Ergo, this video abruptly ends here, as does my night. This is Multimedia signing off. Thanks for stopping by. Nighty night.